Welcome to The Nest Show, the podcast that brings you insights into the crypto market, trading and investment experiences, and what we're looking forward to as we navigate the space together. Before we get started with the show, I want to thank our friends and sponsors over at Prime XBT, where many of our listeners have already signed up to trade by visiting the birbnest.com/PrimeXBT. Prime XBT is the most powerful trading platform offering immediate access to over 30 assets. Users may trade cryptocurrencies, Forex, commodities, stock indices, and much more, all from a single Bitcoin-settled account.
Spend your crypto anywhere with the Plutus debit card. Visit thebirbnest.com/Plutus. Send cash to your friends and earn free crypto with the Metal Pay app. Learn more at thebirbnest.com/metal.
And now for the show. What The Nest Show is. This is a podcast brought to you by the Birb Nest community, an independent crypto and Forex-centered trading community built to sharpen each other in capturing opportunities in the markets while protecting capital along the way. What this is not. Trading advice. We are not financial advisors, and you should not regard any information here or in the Nest Club as financial advice. You should always consult a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Nest Show podcast. And as you know, this series of episodes is actually to bring the awareness to the community, to build the knowledge for those that actually truly need it, especially now that cryptocurrency market is actually just, really pumping just the way it should for the entire past years. And even more because of that, it's my amazing pleasure and great honor to have an amazing podcast guest today with us. And let me introduce to you amazingly talented and one of the most hard-working people that I know, Phil, the business development advisor for YFDAI. How is it going, Phil?
Yeah, going really, really good, Adrian. And thanks for having me on the show. And actually, that's probably the best introduction that anybody's ever given me. So, thank you very much for that.
No way, you're too kind. Yeah, very good to be having you. That's really an honor. And YFDAI. For those who actually don't know, I'm great honor not only for having Phil today on the podcast, but also for being in the real good relationship with the project itself. I'm really big supporter. We are actually having an amazing collaboration, and I personally believe that's what many people would also know, that building is the key to survive in a space. The building, the constructivity, this actual creativity as well, right? And pushing whatever the project kind of just is at one point, and pushing it and building, not really distracting or hating. This is what keeps this company, this company and this community kind of grow for whatever it is in this industry of cryptocurrency market and the blockchain industry. Because again, because of the volatility, there is so much emotions around any projects, right? So people would often blame you for their losses. People would often blame you, for everything they can, because that's what people do, right? And my very first question to you, Phil, is about the origins of YFDAI. How did it all started? How did the journey start?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess there's two different stories here. There's the story of how YFDAI started and the story of how I ended up getting involved with them. YFDAI was set up because the founders were actually traders. They've been in the crypto space since 2016, 2017, and they're heavy believers in DeFi. But more importantly, they're really heavy believers that the crypto space, and in particular DeFi, is going in a direction that it shouldn't be. And that's a direction of having a lack of protection for users, for buyers and sellers of tokens. In particular, the amount of what's now known as rug pulls and exit scams. These projects are just going through the roof, where it's very, very easy to set up a Telegram group, a quick website, do a raise, and within minutes, be gone and disappeared. And I think the biggest issue as well is the way that the wider crypto community is viewing this, because it seems now that it's just accepted. that's the way that it is. And that shouldn't be the case. So the founding ethos of YFDAI is to change that. And, we can talk about that a little bit more later. But they wanted to bring a full suite DeFi platform. And we're talking true DeFi, which means real products, real services, real incomes and profit shares, to the masses. So that's more about YFDAI. I mean, for me, I've been in the industry for around about 5 years and have been providing business development and marketing services to projects and VCs. But I actually retired back in 2019 because the reality of it is that projects wanted to know what ROI they could get from marketing. And the real answer to that is very little. 2019, people were still hurt. We'd had this big bear market. Many people hadn't cashed out at the top. There's no new money coming in. So just go and spend $100,000, $200,000 on marketing was really quite pointless in our view. And our advice to these projects was, look, go and get devs, go and build, make sure you've got a really solid business model and actually achieve something and prepare for the better times. So I went into retirement, and the reason why I came out of retirement was because we repositioned our own portfolios to DeFi. We noticed this trend that was going to be coming back in 2018. We prepared for it, and we were researching many of the different DeFi platforms. So I came in originally as an investor, did a lot of research, found the team to be very good, liked their ethos about security and bringing a change to the space. So, of course, I brought in and, offered my help and my services. And that just grew to the point where I ended up being the lead advisor and helping them get everything set up and on their way.
Oh, and you're doing such an amazing job as this very person. I mean, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed with what you achieved personally and what you keep achieving, actually pushing the project forward as the business development advisor in here. I mean, this just speaks of how amazingly talented you are. But with all the questions that I kind of have in front of me, just for as we go, I cannot really help myself but just comment on what you just said, about how many people actually got hurt for the past years, right? And how many people actually disbelieved that this market could ever rise again, right? And we're talking back, a year ago or something that was like 2019, especially, the very first couple of months. Quarter one, it was actually quarter two, right? This actual Bitcoin breakout again. For me, being the technical analyst mainly, I kind of have all the candles in front of me just when I close my eyes, right? It kind of just projects everything with the charts. But I can recall that this very day, of the Bitcoin breakout, that gave people the hope you actually needed after this entire year of the bear market, right? Was actually on April Fools, on the April the 1st, which was even funnier, right? Because when you think about it, this was one hoax, one big joke, and the market actually just jumped straight off to a brand new bull market. So, and since then, the industry has really changed a lot, right? The industry has really changed a lot, not only because new people, they always come and go, and there's definitely, unquestionable amount of new money flowing in to the industry with new people, especially, well, let's face the truth, those who know not so much, those who don't really have so much experience, statistically speaking. And this makes them far more indifferent, pretty much far more in different assets like cryptocurrencies within the DeFi. But yeah, speaking of DeFi, this was actually a bubble at one point. Like the growths, for so many projects, they were actually exponential, right? Which is amazing from the perspective of the project itself, because they actually get the funding, they actually get the recognition that is needed for the company to survive in this industry that is so volatile. And what I think, is as also people come and go in this industry, so do the companies. And that's what worst about this industry, right? Just as you said, so many like projects, they just rug pull right everything, right? They just come and literally just scam people out of their money. And that's what makes this industry so dangerous to an extent. And I'm so impressed with how YFDAI kind of like has been approaching this matter, right? Because of it's not only about like being verified here and there, like by multiple like accreditors, like just blockchain auditors and so on. I mean, that's kind of like given, right? So many projects actually don't have it. But if I were to kind of like just circle back to the core values, to the fundamental values that are very specific and unique to YFDAI versus the opposite or different projects, like if you were this kind to share your thoughts on why do you think YFDAI is different?
Yeah, no problems at all. I mean, for me, when I was doing my own research, there's key things that we look for. And, the first thing that I noticed about YFDAI is that they did no pre-sale. Okay. So, most of the rug pulls and exit scams, they do a pre-sale and they're gone the next day. That's your first pain point, isn't it? It's your first risk area. So YFDAI did no pre-sale at all. They simply funded the development themselves out of their own pocket. And we like that because it means that they've got skin in the game. Yeah, they're not sitting on a pile of ETH of other people's money that gives that temptation to either run straight away or run, a few weeks down the line when something doesn't go, quite to plan. Because it's a small business, not everything is easy in the early stages. So that was a big plus. But then they went to additional lengths because it's more than just the initial ETH that you raised. It's then about the token distribution. So they made sure that the team, the advisor, and the marketing tokens were all locked in time-release smart contracts. And there is a certain amount of distribution that happens every month, which gives them enough to be able to go and proceed. But of course, gives the rest of the community the protection that the team cannot dump tokens on them. So those two things are really, really key. On top of that, they did so much more though. They then went and got fully audited by Blockchain Consortium. And of course, as we've seen with a lot of the other exit scams, where what they do is suddenly print and mint loads more tokens and sell them on the market, crashing the price. So having no mint function in the contract and having Blockchain Consortium to audit it to show that, just these are things that we should expect to be done by projects. This shouldn't be out of the ordinary. So they did all of that, and originally there was an anon team, and that is always a big red flag. But unfortunately, we're in the crypto industry that has very little regulation. And then what we're talking about is a DeFi project. So we're not talking about CeFi, where there's lots of regulations in place for all of the different jurisdictions. We're talking about a new form of bringing financial services via, peer-to-peer methods. And because of that, the regulation is non-existent. So there's lots of really good projects, and the legal advice to them is that they have to remain anon until there's some clarity. But again, with YFDAI, what they did, they took on very, very high-level legal team, and they worked through a route to enable them to become non-anon. That includes, having an incorporated tech company in Singapore, applications for licenses, for an exchange license, and also a wallet license. And then they're actually also going one step further to have a full e-money license. So, it's all of these things that have been done that make a massive difference to the community. And, one of the products that we're about to launch, it's actually on testnet at the moment, is SafeSwap. And we've got a launchpad platform for bringing projects through that will follow, those same key points. So they need to lock the liquidity, and they need to lock the team advisor and marketing tokens. They can't have a mint function, and they need to be audited.
Well, I think you've just touched upon, very, very couple of good points while talking about the overall, I would say, differences for why YFDAI is actually unique and different, right? Because again, the truth is that many people, like, they do consider projects as mainly the investment opportunity for them, right? To just cash out, on the difference that they actually earn through trading. But not so many people would ever realize how important it is for project like YFDAI to keep building, because that is actually what builds the fundamentals of the entire industry, right? And I think you would agree also with that in general, um, there are these couple of projects, like this couple of big projects that actually work behind the scenes, and that people would ever, like, rarely ever notice, what's going on truly, and how amazingly important they are to the entire consistency of the entire, I would say, industry, right? So as much, for example, as Bitcoin and Ethereum is for these, let's say, all G, just space for crypto and this entire, I would say, ecosystem. So that seems similar to me for YFDAI to actually just position the entire DeFi industry for the next months and future. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, the team are trying to bring a change. They want to change the way that people buy and sell crypto to have protection. Let's get rid of this belief that rug pulls and exit scams are part of the industry, and it's okay if you lose two, but 8 become big winners. It shouldn't be like that. There is more, to it as well, because we've also got to look at what do people define as a DeFi project, because there's many, many projects that are popping up that only have one service, and it's a copy and paste of somebody else. That's really not a DeFi project. So, certainly with YFDAI, what they've tried to do is make a full suite platform where the residual incomes from the profits from the services are actually shared with the whole of the community. So it's not just about having a staking platform. Yes, staking and farming are popular at the moment, and they are key parts of the platform, but it's about having other income producing services. So, with YFDAI, they've got a full suite, and the e-money license would also mean that eventually, we'll be distributing debit cards, we'll have an e-commerce platform, on ramps, off ramps. So instead of just being able to earn money from DeFi, you'll actually also be able to spend it on the e-commerce platform, using the debit cards. So it really is a fully inclusive end-to-end platform.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, just not only from because of what you are saying, I've also kind of like experienced, how actually amazingly well adjusted to the user interface. Regarding the user interface and the overall user experience, YFDAI services, like per the website works. I mean, that goes without saying. But you've touched, just upon staking and other couple of just trends, right, that are being developed in this industry. But before I ask you more about this, I truly want to kind of like just emphasize to all the viewers that YFDAI is actually one of the very few, or if not the only one, that has grown so much since the actual DeFi market like decreased by 70% on average so far, or 60%.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it speak a lot about the project itself? To me, it does, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been really, really good. Our launch happened around about sort of 3 months ago. And the team did absolutely zero marketing. Everything was kept low key. They made several promises to the community, which is, look, we've locked the liquidity. Now we're going to create the smart contracts for locking, all the team advisor and marketing tokens. And we want to build solid foundations, before we start marketing. Most DeFi projects do not have a white paper. And, I'm sure that anybody that's read the YFDAI white paper, it really is, fully inclusive. And we only actually started the marketing campaign 2.5 weeks ago. But I think people have realized, because of the way that it's been set up from start to finish, that it's got great promise. So yeah, the whole of the market, especially the DeFi market in general, has been down massively. And, the YFDAI token price has grown, exponentially week in, week out. But more than that, what's better and more interesting is the way that the community has grown. We're just about to touch 4,000 members in the Telegram, similar on Twitter. And, it really is a fantastic community. There's none of the general sort of Telegram trolling in there. It's a community that like to help new members. And I think that also speaks volumes about, how far we've progressed. It really comes down to very, very simple basics, which is, deliver on your promises and build your products. And if you do the foundations correctly, the true value of the project will grow anyway.
I think that's frankly speaking well said, and again, just more referring, to the entire part. I would say from the technical side, but from the technical analysis side, and this is kind of like the point that might interested, that may keep people interested, just in observing, the actual price changes over the time. And as I said, the YFDAI actually has been, if not the best one relatively for this performance over the since it actually started, then what needs to be kind of like acknowledged by all the traders, by all the people, that it's never actually going in a straight line. There are always like ups and downs. There are always like, just advances and declines in the price. But when a person knows, that's what I did, right? When a person knows and actually believes like how amazing the project kind of like just how amazingly it discovers the trends and the user's needs in this space. That's what I mean. This is in the long term, like unquestionably building the value, right? Building the value and building the price, because price corresponds with value, which is obvious. Yet so many people would not really realize that ever. So this brings me to this question that I always kind of like wanted to ask about. I mean, this is might be a tough one, right? So it's about the trend discovery, right? And many people, many projects, they struggle to actually survive within any industry, be it, in the equities, right? Or just issuing, let's say, products or services like within the cryptocurrency market industry. It's always about discovering trends, and always about discovering these trends early, right? So per all the features that YFDAI actually brings, which is, staking, farming, safe swap, and borrowing and lending and launchpad and insurance, and so on and so forth, and so many to come. This is all the trends that I'm talking about, right? And for a project, there needs to be always like this kind of like perhaps gut feeling, right, for what the direction for the market is going to be in the next couple of months or years. So I very wanted to kind of like hear very much on what your take is, like from your perspective as the business development advisor. How is that possible, or what are the steps, what are the ways perhaps to predict such trends?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think it's, when you're looking at something like this, you've always got to look at what's a short-term trend, yeah, and what's a long-term trend that's going to actually have some longevity to it. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. I mean, I think most people in the space believe that how finance is being accessed at the moment is coming to an end. It's very, very tricky. You've got to provide KYC. You've got to provide your bank statements. You've got to basically tell them every single detail about your life. And then, after a certain amount of days, you'll get a no answer. And quite often, there's people that have got equity, but they just need to raise some funds for something that aren't able to. The current system is slow, it's expensive, and the majority of the profits are going to the institutions that are providing the services. So the good thing about decentralized finance is it makes it accessible to everybody. You don't need to go into a bank. You don't need to sit down with an advisor and have financial advice just about, taking X, Y, Z product.
Because, sorry, but just because you can always take an advice from a cartoon parrot or other like anime character on Twitter, right? Like advice.
Exactly. There's many products out there where, most people are able to make their own decision. And if they've got the equity to put up, why shouldn't they be able to do that, in a fast and, good manner? So, decentralized finance, we believe, is in the very, very, very early stages, and the growth that's coming for it is going to be exponential. So it was, fairly obvious that that's a place where a project would be good, well positioned. But we've got to look at it deeper than that, because, staking and farming, are they really decentralized finance? In a way, yes, because, you can earn a return on your assets. So if you hold X amount of token and you stake it or farm it, you can receive X% more tokens. But of course, that depends on the value of that token. If the value of the token is decreasing whilst your amount of tokens is increasing, a lot of people find out that actually they're not making much profit. But that's really a story of, inflation that we'll probably talk about later anyway. So we then need to start looking about, okay, well, what is true decentralized finance? And of course, lending and borrowing is already getting huge, with TVLs, going through the roof. But we looked at it and we thought, okay, well, what's going on in the wider world? At the moment, as everybody knows, the whole world is being affected by COVID. And we have to look at what the effects of COVID are. Well, for us, we went into lockdown 2 days ago. So we can't now go out. The banks are shut, everything's closed. We've only got supermarkets and chemists. So people are now being forced to do a lot of things that they would traditionally have done online. And that's why, we saw this early, and we believe that the e-commerce side and the application for the e-money license was going to be so important, because, the online shopping is only going to be going in one direction. For the last 3-4 years, there's been a huge decline of retail on the high street, because shopping online and doing things online is cheaper and it's faster. And of course, with COVID, this is just going to accelerate it much further. So that's really why, with YFDAI, we looked at, okay, what is DeFi about now, but what is it going to be about in 12, 18, 24 months' time? And having the end-to-end solution with the on-ramps, the off-ramps, and a full e-commerce platform to allow you to actually not only earn returns, earn profit shares, get access to financial services, but then also be able to spend it using debit cards and using e-commerce platforms. We believe that is a market that's going to be growing exponentially.
Yeah, I think, again, Phil, for what you've just said, there's so much actually that I could refer to, but I wish we had so much time for that now, because you've been already generous with your time, and thank you for that. But I cannot really help myself but again just comment very briefly on and actually confirm it for what you said. And the way I look at it personally, just as an investor, as a technical analyst, as a kind of like, as well to an extent, like this industry believer, right? Although people too often confuse the actual belief and making money, because these are not in the same things, right? But the truth is that the entire world, like with the chance, for chance, or should I say the threat perhaps, from COVID, although there can be chance for some though, the entire economic situation on the planet, right? It's actually being shattered to an extent. And despite, many people would just see after the open, I don't know, the trading view charts, that S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, whatever averages you kind of like imagine, they would just keep growing, right? But so few people would ever realize that comes mainly from printing money, right? And printing the unlimited amounts of money, which is the quantitative easing, of course, just bringing the inflation, keeping the inflation high, keeping the currencies devaluated. And the way I read this is by the central banks is a slow generational kind of like a transition from the classical, I would say, perhaps, or the world we've known so far per finance, to digital economies, right? When everything is digital, when it, just like you said, like just commerces, the shops are online, right? So they can get everything online, especially with the financial services ahead. And isn't it like, again, feel free to comment on that, but isn't it to an extent that the cryptocurrency industry, because it was created, the Bitcoin was created on October 31st. We've just recently celebrated 12th birthday for Bitcoin in 2008. That's when it started, 2 weeks after the Lehman Brothers bank collapsed, right? In the housing bubble. And Bitcoin was the answer to that, technically. Technically, I mean, per the document, per the white paper, it was to solve the inflationary model that is faulty and that is actually, just devaluating the currencies. And Bitcoin proposed different solution for deflationary model, right? For the model that actually, because of the mining, difficulty, just makes this supply and pretty much like keep it stable, and at the same time demand to keep growing. And the way I think is that cryptocurrency is sort of like this middle element, this middle point between the transition from the system that we've known so far to a brand new digital economies. And I don't know, perhaps this may be just like a test run, right? For like, I'm talking about the huge scale, like the generational scale, which is general, the decades, the last decades. But with all the achievements so far from YFDAI and all the plans ensured by the actual credibility for YFDAI, which I think is needed in this industry, I think literally that this is going to be a project that is going to last so many years that it actually will help the world just switch and transit to the new digital economies. And is it like, would you be happy to comment on that perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned something earlier on, which was, there was a time when everybody thought that, cryptocurrency was over and Bitcoin was never going to come back. And of course it has. And, we've seen just over the last, few weeks and months, very, very large institutions now coming into crypto, with PayPal, just 2 weeks ago, coming in and supporting cryptocurrencies. So yeah, I fully believe that we are going to be seeing a huge change and a step towards, sort of digital currencies becoming mass adopted, which is what everybody in crypto has been talking about, for years. But I definitely believe it's coming. Something else that you touched on, which I think is important, is when you discuss about inflation. Now, that really is an important point, because it doesn't matter whether it's cryptocurrency or a traditional business. Inflation can be extremely damaging. And, we touched on it before with farming pools and staking pools, that, if you've got a higher amount of inflation, yes, you may be getting more of something, but if it's worth less and less and less, it's very, very hard to make a profit. And that's something that at YFDAI we've gone into great detail with. The economics of the white paper, it took a very, very long time to get it right. And we've got a small supply. It's only 21,000 to begin with. And with the farming and the staking tokens, they are distributed. It's a much, much lower inflation rate than most of the other projects. But we have a solid burning mechanism in place. We'll actually remove every single farming and staking token that's ever distributed. So eventually there'll be just 13,950 tokens. So, to remove inflation is always key, really, or extreme inflation. It's key in any business.
That's very true. And that's what happens with so many governments, right? Or countries like Zimbabwe, or, right? Especially countries have the hyperinflation shots. But, again, I think we agree that YFDAI is actually, I think, one of the leaders currently in the DeFi scene. And that is exactly what opens the door for the entire industry, just as I said, even if it happens behind the scenes and so unnoticed to so many people. This still happening. right? This is still happening by YFDAI. And I just want to highlight once again for how much of the credibility I gave to YFDAI for what they've been doing. And it's not only, again, about such amazing people in the team, just like, like Phil, our amazing guest, but it's also about the mission and the actual vision for the company that keeps growing, right? And just to make sure that, again, that the products are delivered, right? And as it recently happened, the products are often delivered even way behind, just before the actual schedule says so, right? Which is amazing and just gives it a confirmation. Would you just give a tiny hint before I let you go for what the latest updates are and what's the newest updates that are actually coming just in the next days and weeks?
Sure. I mean, look, we always have to be realistic. The project's only 3 months old. We've got a lot to prove. And the only way that you're going to be doing that is by consistently delivering. We currently sat at just a 5 million market cap. So, we are aiming to be one of the leaders in the market, but we do acknowledge that there's a lot of work and a lot to prove along the way. But yeah, so far we've got staking is live. And, you touched on earlier, our interfaces are very, very easy to use. I think that's key for anything in DeFi. Farming's live. It's been up and running now for around about 2-3 weeks. And we are about to launch SafeSwap, which is our exchange, and also Launchpad, which will be helping all of these other projects launch in the right way with the token locks, with the contract audits, and everything else. So that's all going to be coming in within the next 4 weeks. And we're also actually, just after I get off this call, we'll be launching a new profit share, so a new income to our users, which will be accessed by NFTs. So that's something that we're really, really excited about as well. There's also quite a few sort of surprises to come, because when we did the white paper, we only wanted to give the products and services that we were deliverable now, so sort of by Q1, Q2 next year. But there's probably 3, maybe 4 other really exciting services that aren't on the white paper. So look out for a white paper V2 coming fairly soon.
Well, that's been really impressive to me. That's been really impressive to me, and so many people, I'm sure, are actually going to fall in love with YFDAI after they've watched this amazing episode with such an amazing guest of Phil for the business development for YFDAI. Phil, it's been such an honor to have you on this show today. And we do have such a custom for every guest that we always have, that we give a very, very space, very tiny space at the very end to share their thoughts, their final tips and suggestions for those who are new and want to survive in this space. Like, would you be happy to share some tip of yours?
Oh, well, let's keep it really, really simple. If something is too good to be true, it usually is. Do your own due diligence. Don't listen. There's a lot of good information available on Twitter and on YouTube, but unfortunately, there's also a lot of, misguidance as well. So, it's be sensible. If you're unsure, seek advice from somebody that you trust. And, when it comes to, purchasing crypto, you've just got to make sure that you're safe. Always ensure that you've got 2FA. Be careful of leaving lots of funds on exchanges. These are just really the basic rules that anybody should, be doing before they get into crypto. And the key comes down to research. Anybody can go into a Telegram group, find out who the CEO is, or at least one of the higher level managers, drop them a message, ask them the questions, ask them the tough questions. Too many people don't read white papers. Too many people don't ask the questions, and it really does only take 5 or 10 minutes. So my advice to all of the new people coming into crypto is to take a breath, take your time, and just be sensible. If you're going to go and buy a house, you wouldn't go and do that without a solicitor or without doing the necessary research and due diligence. Any investment should be no different. Take your time, take a breath, and, do that research.
I couldn't agree more, Phil. That's again just another point to for the people to love YFDAI and love how amazingly talented person you are. Thank you for being here on this The Nest Show podcast episode. And as always, Adrian CryptoBirb I've been just your host again, and thank you for being here.
I've really actually enjoyed it, Adrian. It's been a good chat, and I hope we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, we'll make sure to cover that again. Just stay tuned. Thanks for having. Thanks to everybody for watching, and let's stay tuned for another episode.
SAT revolutionizes online advertising with blockchain technology. Learn more at thebirbnest.com/SATT.
I'd like to thank our listeners for joining this episode of The Nest Show. If you've appreciated the depth and breadth of what you've heard with us today, subscribe to our podcast and find our landing page at thebirbnest.com. We have a vibrant Discord community which acts as our central hub of operations, and we welcome you to join us at thebirbnest.com/Discord. We also offer an extensive free bulletin on emerging crypto market trends, exclusive undervalued gem reports, and in-depth expert technical and fundamental analysis at thebirbnest.com/bulletin. We always appreciate engagement from our community, which of course means liking the video and subscribing to our page, where we insist on bringing you the highest quality content available. Also, we're happy to incorporate tips and topics from our listeners and encourage you to email us at thenestshow@thebirbnest.com. This podcast is brought to you by the Birb Nest. Thank you, and trade on.